Police must end, and it will in January. I'm now recognizing the ranking member for her opening statement.
All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome our witnesses who've traveled to be here today. This is the 6th hearing that the House Natural Resources Committee has had on the topic of immigration, and it's the 4th meeting that we've had in this subcommittee. Now, I want to remind my colleagues that this is the Natural Resources Committee, not the Homeland Security Committee, and this is also the 2nd hearing in a row in which the Republican leadership of this committee has invited a witness who is an active candidate running for Congress. So I want to just remind my colleagues that our taxpayer dollars are not to be used for political purposes or as a campaign stop for political activities. And in addition to that, I think it's worth noting that this committee was originally scheduled for earlier in the morning, but was rescheduled so that Donald Trump could meet with House Republicans off campus for a political rally this morning. So here we are, in spite of all of that, having an immigration hearing this morning in the House Natural Resources Committee under the pretense of concern about a federal lease on public lands. But I guess my question is if folks are so concerned about federal leases, why did they not raise their voices when Donald Trump violated the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution and a federal lease with the GSA so that he could use the National Post Office building here on Pennsylvania Avenue to open a Trump hotel and use it as a personal piggy bank during his presidency, as foreign governments spent millions of dollars at that hotel while they were meeting with him in the Oval Office with official business? Furthermore, he used one of our greatest national parks for a 4th of July campaign rally, even against the objections of the local tribes for whom it is a sacred place. Or what about Attorney Barr using his authority to call park police and National Guard troops in to take public citizens out of Lafayette Park, which is also a public space in front of the White House, after he did not want them there protesting after the death of George Floyd? Or when the Trump administration blasted through public lands and habitats to advance their various priorities around the development of natural resources. And my question is, why didn't the leadership of this committee raise their voices then? And also, if we're so concerned about NEPA, which I'm excited to hear that we're suddenly concerned about NEPA, why is it that they demanded, as part of the flesh of the negotiation over the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which they are now violating during their budget hearings, that we undermine the fundamentals of NEPA in order to keep the U.S. economy from shutting down? So I find it extremely ironic that we're here today in what appears to be more like a New York State or New York City Assembly meeting to talk about a park in New York and the use of a small piece of an airstrip in this park for housing individuals who have come to this country to seek asylum. So what is this hearing actually about? Is it actually about public lands? Is it about NEPA? Or is it about using this committee for campaign activities to advance a political agenda during a campaign year and to advance political candidates? In fact, we tried to pass bipartisan immigration reform here in Congress just a few months ago, and the very gentleman that these folks have been meeting with this morning told them to not support bipartisan immigration reform because it was a good issue for Donald Trump to campaign on. So I just find it very rich that we're sitting here this morning to talk about violations of federal leases, of which there's been extremely lengthy due diligence to make sure that that did not occur, talking about immigration and demonizing immigrants who come to one of the greatest cities in the world, who has welcomed immigrants with open arms for literally centuries, in a committee that does not have jurisdiction to work on these issues. So I look forward to the conversation. I do welcome our public officials for joining us today. This is the people's house. This is your house, but this is not a campaign stop. And with that, I yield back.
I find it rich. I find our natural resources, our greatest natural resources, the people I'm looking at, the people of this country. That's where we have something to do. I would like to now introduce our witnesses. First, we have Ms. Jamie Williams.